Welcome to the Mindsea podcast series, Moving Digital Health. Our guest today is Darren Steeves, founder and CEO of JackHabbit, a personalized health and wellness platform. Thanks for joining us today, Darren.
Thanks a lot. I'm grateful to be here.
Could you tell us a little bit about your background?
Oh boy. I always find that a loaded question. I've had a pretty eclectic background. I was supposed to be a teacher, but decided I didn't like working with kids. Just kidding. But I was going to go into student teaching, but I had met my very first mentor at a YMCA and said, why don't you kind of go into the fitness field and stay with us? I had done a summer job there. So that led me into the fitness, wellness, health industry. Really enjoyed it, liked working with adults, liked working with young adults, and then continued on, wanted to go back to school. So then moved to Halifax to work Dal full-time and go to school part-time to do a master's in health and human performance. And then just kept going, started a couple companies in consulting, coaching, got into high performance sport. But when I kind of sat down and realized, to make this even more long-winded, I realized that my purpose was to help people, and I enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what got my battery boosted, or kept my battery boosted. So everything that I've done is kind of related around to that. But my latest iteration into kind of JackHabbit, I had started a consulting company with a couple colleagues in kind of the health and wellness space. We did a lot with insurers. We did a lot with big consulting companies, and realized that there might be a need for a platform that could personalize the journey, the experience of trying to build a habit, trying to form health habits. And it seemed to be lacking. A lot of people still kind of focused on self-directed. So taking a bit of the behavioral science background kind of led all of this long pathway towards JackHabbit.
Okay, interesting. And so how long ago was that when you started JackHabbit?
We started doing some studies in 2016 because I'm a big believer in kind of evidence-informed, evidence-based approaches. But really started JackHabbit in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
My co-founder, Zach Miller, how I met him is he had stolen my wife's hotel room at a hotel when he was on his honeymoon, and ended up chatting, joking about it. And my wife
could have gone the other way.
Yep. And after discussions, he said, you should meet my husband because he's kind of in a similar field. And so he was a machine learning IT guy working in the health space. We just kind of kept in touch, kept talking. And, I felt and I believe that we have value alignment. So we just he helped with some of the studies in 2016, stuff we did in 2018, and then said, well, why don't we go for it and give it a shot? So we started that in 2020 together.
And what did that first MVP version look like?
Oh, yeah. We decided to take a big bite out of the apple. Everyone says, how to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. But we decided to take a pretty big meal by building a platform rather than just a tool. So a little more painful than I thought, because we had signed a deal right out of the gate to build a platform for an insurer, which ended up being Console, powered by us, JackHabbit, because that's what we do on the JackHabbit side, is use our platform to customize and personalize. It was an experience building out kind of a white label platform. So we had not fake it to make it, but we had, build a rough MVP to kind of show what the experience would be like. And then continue to build to this day. So like I said, a little different than your traditional kind of MVP where we were trying to go bigger and build kind of a behavioral science ML platform that's white label.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, having that first customer must have been key though, because that's always one of the biggest challenges, getting those first few customers in the door, and then customizing your solution to them, right?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like I said, our sales cycles are a lot longer than B2B or B2C when you go B2B2C or B2I. So yeah, it certainly did help. Obviously, we had a champion on the inside, which was great. Someone in the mental health space who kind of understood IT and the advantages and how it could be helpful. But yeah, no, it was certainly, and it opened up the door to more grants and more support, which has been terrific as well.
Okay. And how has that original MVP evolved over the past few years?
Yeah, obviously we like to do what everyone does and kind of do the customer discovery. So that certainly hasn't hurt and helped us. So, sending out, doing focus groups. We probably, not probably, we spent more on the back end. So, being, trying to develop a personalized engine, which we ended up coining a growth management system, kind of that next evolution beyond learning management systems.
Mm-hmm.
So I would suggest spending more time on the UX UI, which has been important, considering that we had to invest a lot in building the engine, as opposed to the UX UI. So I would say that's probably where we've been going more in the most recent past.
Okay. And so, what does the JackHabbit platform look like right now? I know you have kind of different solution for employees versus students. What are the different pillars of your offering?
Yeah, so we say that we're a white label customizable platform, but we also have a suite of products, and they can be turned off and on or as a standalone. So our products are Q Life, which is a quality of life tool that is in the student space, both post-secondary students and the employee space. So we can use the tool there. And then on the white label side, I would say there's three verticals: student, employees, and citizens. So we are in talks with some governments to build an e-health solution for them. So yeah, we look at those three different groups. And then we have this foundational component, foundational platform, JackHabbit. And then of course, in the discovery phase, we would customize to potentially one of those three groups, whether it's post-secondary students, employees, or citizens. So we have some content, as I just said, suite of products, but what we do is bake in their content or their third-party providers. So again, that first solution I discussed had 6 different solutions in it, 2 of them being publicly traded companies where we would aggregate, navigate, and personalize the experience with that content, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so you're packaging elements of your own platform, like Q Life, along with other solutions to form a kind of holistic offering.
Yeah, totally. The term in the industry is, a big one is called stepped care, which is what you just said, which is more of a holistic approach. So, for example, in mental health, but even kind of total health, on one end of the spectrum is kind of your proactive health behavior. So Q Life, you want to get physically active, you're ready for it. Then the next level up is kind of maybe ICBT, like cognitive behavioral therapy. So you might do an IT service for that. The next level would be peer support. And a good example that people can check out is called Togetherall. That's an IT service that has peer support moderated. Then you might go into coaching, like a coaching software program. And then you get into what people would probably know as telemedicine. So if you can put that all under one umbrella, and you can see a lot of people in the industry talking about it, rather than having to download 6, 7, 8 different solutions on your phone, or an insurer having 8, 9 different solutions. If we can get it under one digital front door, that's what we've been focused on. And that's, again, as I said earlier, my background is the easier it is, the more personalized it is, that increases confidence in the user, and the more likely they are to use it, more likely they see value in it, and the more likely of them to get the right help at the right time at the right intensity.
Okay. And putting my tech hat on, that sounds like a whole lot of integrations and yeah, integrating a bunch of third-party services is never easy. So maybe talk about the tech side a
Yeah.
little bit and how you've handled that.
Yeah, and I'm surprised I'm the one with no hair as opposed to Zach, because yes, it is I gather it's quite stressful from what I watched. I'm not the tech person. I know enough to be dangerous, as many use that analogy. I'm more the IP on the business side, but like I said, I'm involved in all of the conversations. But yeah, I gather it's you've got to. That's why when Zach built it from ground up, we did privacy by design, and he built the system. If you want to do a podcast with Zach, he could describe how we did it. But yeah, that was part of the goal from ground up, is make sure that we have privacy baked in and make sure that the integrations are easy, but it still came with some pretty big challenges, because it's a partnership, as you know better than I, because you need their support with our support to make all that work. So that's been an interesting experience as well. So yeah, building from the ground up has been pretty important, that we knew that that's who we wanted to be.
Yeah, certainly the privacy by design approach is really important when you're dealing with personal health information, and just having that trust of the user that that they feel their data is secure. You also mentioned mental health is part of the solution.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you talk about resilience a lot. Why is resilience so important to that aspect of care?
Yeah, it's a great question, Reuben, and complicated. I obviously was a physical health expert for a good chunk of my career, and then recognized probably 15 years ago or more that you can't really separate from neck up and neck down. They work together.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate the word mental health, been soaked in it. I'm a little bit more of a fan of total health, because your mental health could be improved by physical activity, quality sleep, nutrition, and I could explain for all those reasons. But then more traditional mental health concepts like practicing optimism, learning about it, problem solving, practicing acceptance. There's a number of different strategies. And everyone, I think, is pretty clear that we've hit an epidemic in that space.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't really a focus 20, 30 years ago. It's certainly getting its due now, and rightfully so. Again, I do a lot of international talks about potentially why our resiliency is a little lower, or why our mental health is struggling. It is complex.
Mm-hmm.
There's two components to resiliency. One is your environment that you're soaked in, and then the other is your skill set. Can your skill set overtake the environment that you're in? If you have, a really difficult boss, you're in a tough relationship, you're soaked in an environment. But I guess at the end of the day, what I feel and what you're asking is improving resiliency skills, or improving quality of life skills, which resilience is a component of, can help. And, I think you've looked at a few of our papers. So we've validated that, we can improve mental health. We can improve overall health with skill development.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it lacking? Again, it appears that we've missed some skills. Every generation believes the generation ahead of them is weaker for the last 4,000 years. My father believes I'm weaker. His grandfather thought he was weaker. But if you talk to
Yeah.
people like Dr. Stan Kuchar, who's in the Senate, looked at child he was the chair of child psychology. If you talk to Michael Unger, who's world famous in resiliency, and some other people, it does appear that this bubble effect that we've put the generation through, like not allowing them to have setbacks and so forth, has regressed their resiliency. So we're seeing, for example, kids at post-secondary who have their resiliency level of like a 12-year-old.
Wow.
That can be improved quickly, but they haven't experienced those setbacks to learn the skills associated with resiliency and quality of life. And what we validated is those can be upgraded quickly, whether it's an employee or whether it's a post-secondary student from 18 to 80, they can be improved. I was on the phone earlier with my dad trying to psychologically manipulate and use some strategies I know to help him, practicing optimism and so forth. So, and then one thing with being involved in a platform, whether it's JackHabbit or one that works for you, is once you build those skills, then having those reminders. And you can see that in, the behavioral review scale that we've been using, having reminders as part of sustaining your resiliency. So building it up, and then how are we going to sustain it? And then also recognizing that changes. So you build your own resiliency battery, your own quality of life battery, but you might move optimism out for a while, and you might move mindfulness in for a while. So there isn't one equation, which is why I've been a bit dumbfounded that people aren't using more AI and ML to drive that individualized experience. It's just more kind of self-directed drive. So that's my complicated answer, because it is complicated. I mean, if we had the answer right now, everyone would be thriving more often rather than struggling. But I think we're on the precipice of, having some really good tools like what we're attempting to do and continue to do to help people flourish more often. Flourish and thriving are the big words right now, and resiliency is a component of that.
Yeah. And maybe talk about, how do you build resilience, or, help people increase their skills through a digital platform, right?
Right.
Like what type of tools, how are they learning, improving through that?
Yep. Great question. We use a cold start. So a lot of this came out of not just my own experience, but I'm a collaborator. So there's quite a few people that sit in behind, who do research, who do so forth, that I've kind of handpicked to have part of the group. Could name some of them, but there's psychiatrists, there's psychologists, head of exercise medicine, nutrition. They're all kind of sitting in behind, making sure we're doing the right things. This did come out of like a bit of live courses that I used to teach, the life coaching that I did. So, having those positive experiences, and then the research I was reading. So, I know you would appreciate this. We use a cold start, so a mini assessment to actually drive where are we going to start, because you have to start somewhere. So we validated, and we're actually publishing this summer, our own Q Life scale. For Console, we used a validated scale that the insurer wanted to use, which Console was for post-secondary students. So it was a student stress index. So that helps the engine start. And then when they get on the inside, then we try to use behavioral science, kind of where are you ready to start? Are you ready to start? And then provide that personalized experience. So with regards to resiliency, I've stupidly taken the time to write a couple of white papers that are 50, 60 pages long. But, I believe some foundational components which appear to be missing in a good chunk is self-awareness. And I can give you a practical example. So knowing where your battery is at. So for today, I'm at about a 6 out of 10. So if I can wake up and go kind of self-evaluate and self-reflect and become self-aware, then I'm at a 6 out of 10. Then I let people know, then that kind of can help dictate my day. What can I accomplish and so forth. If you get up at a 2 out of 10 and you know that, then okay, here's what I'm going to be able to do today. Here's how I'm going to have to charge my battery. So we feel that that's a foundational component to sustain your resiliency or quality of life. Then from there, then it starts to get into your purpose, vision, values. So in North America, we've been acclimatized to set a goal. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done before we set a goal, because then it helps kind of ground you when you fail, which everyone does. If we have this purpose, vision, and value figured out, then you're more likely to be successful. You're more likely to come back. So yeah, we can use like push notifications and all kind of stuff. But when people first come in, most times we put people through purpose, vision, and value exercises, like really
Mhm.
quick exercises.
Yeah.
We do vignettes, so video content associated with that. We ask people to journal and log. They don't have to because some people don't like it, but we give them multiple opportunities to build those foundational components. And then we start to keep pushing them at them. Remember what you said your purpose was, your values, and that helps sustain the resiliency. And we've done, we've been uh, foolish enough to do like usability studies. So we actually we've had funded PhD students to look at, does this content engage with people? Do they like it? Where should it fit in? So we've done all that kind of stuff as well. So
Well, I
that's
would
the way.
certainly say that's not a foolish undertaking. We're a big fan of usability studies ourselves,
Yeah.
just
Thank
to
you. Thank you.
understand how people use the product and how to make it better.
Thanks. No, I appreciate it. I use those jokingly and facetiously, but I wouldn't have done it any otherwise. I mean, as you can tell, it's challenging as a startup to do all of that, but I wouldn't have done it anyways. And there was a big report out in 2022. About 94% of, let's call them competitors or people in the space, don't do anything that we've talked about so far. They just kind of throw it out and hope.
Yeah.
And the privacy is really limited. A lot have been caught doing some nefarious things. So it's been, it's challenging to do evidence-informed, evidence-based, but it keeps my battery charged, our team's batteries charged, and we would continue to do it. So yeah, I think the way that we've tried to, how do we get behavioral science? Because a lot of places are, and I'm not trying to poo-poo on people who are doing it, but they use terms like, our platform uses behavioral science, and we've looked at them and they don't really. And I know you
Mhm.
cited one paper, and we could certainly post that in your podcast, the paper that we did on mobile applications and looking at using a behavioral review scale to study. But yeah, I mean, trying to get good behavioral science into a platform that we know can be successful when, say, Reuben hires Darren to work with him one-on-one. It's how do we take that and put it into a $15 a year solution rather than working with Darren for $15,000 a year.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
always kind of the vision. So yeah, we use that cold start to assess and then do those foundational components. And then after that, it's all the stuff that most people think about, like mindfulness and optimism and sleep and nutrition and physical activity. Then you start to sprinkle those in and nudge people and say, how are we going to round out our resiliency or quality of life plan? And, like I've mentioned, a few strategies that we use on the platform, exercise and so forth. At the end of the day, it is a bit of work.
Yeah.
And, I've talked about that for 25 years. It's, it's not that you can just all of a sudden wake up and live a healthy lifestyle. There's a bit of work, and our goal is to try to make it as minimalist as possible, but there's a bit, if you want to make that change.
Yeah, and certainly, you could have the best tool or, tools available, but it's, getting people to use them can be another challenge too.
Oh,
And you mentioned, reminders or, different ways to keep people engaged, but just wondering if you have any other insights on, yeah, getting that engagement, getting people hooked and into that habit of, using the platform.
yeah, great question. So when we did some work with the computer science lab out of Dal and a couple other places, we definitely looked at, customization, personalized features, and what does work. I will say a couple things. One is contextualization. So if
Mhm.
you're working with a student population, it needs to resonate with them. So if we look at Behavioral Science 101, if they feel like it's personalized and contextualized, they're more likely to use it. So that means content that's speaking to being a post-secondary student, content that's speaking to being an employee. That's a great place to start where, like, for example, some insurers, it's just a generic resiliency program where you go like, well, this doesn't resonate with me. Or for Darren, for me to get like the benefits of physical activity in my hub, I might turn off because I'm like, they don't know me. I've been exercising for 25 years. I don't need to know the benefits, but I might appreciate some content or an experience of, take it to the next level, for example.
Yeah.
So having it in context and then having it personalized to your behavioral science is really what we're trying to study. So where are you at on the continuum? So, I've had a sleep disorder my whole life and it's never going to change. So what strategies are you going to use for that person on a platform rather than just your generic PDF that says get a good night's sleep? So there are specific strategies that we can use for that. So those types of things I feel are critical and where we've seen success in engaging people. Because like you said, E plus VOI equals ROI to me. So engagement, that they see a value on their investment of their time is actually going to lead to this return on investment. So they're lead indicators towards ROI. So, again, putting people through that purpose, vision, and values are important. We've used external motivation to drive internal motivation. So that's where you get into this term extrinsic, intrinsic. So we're not totally against badges and collection of points, but where I felt a lot of the solutions have fallen down is that's their primary way of motivation. And we know that doesn't work long term. So we work with our clients or our customers. We've developed like onboarding strategies because we still need to get people to the digital front door. And then once we get them to the digital front door, using those behavioral science tactics of where do you fit on this continuum and providing experience focused on that and moving with you is how we keep people engaged.
Yeah. And I'm wondering between like the different populations that you've worked with, like segments like students, versus employees, do you see many differences, whether it's, generational, age-based or, other aspects that you have to address for?
Yeah, you had sent me this question earlier, and I think it's a great question. And of course, I will say, sure, I will say the younger generations are less tolerant of any glitches. It's kind of that, I don't know if I'm allowed to use the term, like the Facebook, Instagram, where those are free services that are multi-billion-dollar products. So we've really got to be cautious to have any glitches with the kids. The employees seem to tolerate it a bit more and kind of understand that things can be a little glitchy the older ages. So I would humbly suggest that's one thing.
The expectations for usability of a mobile app, for instance, are very high because they've just grown up with like this thing always just works the way I want it to, and there's never any issues, and I just expect everything to just work just as smoothly.
So you do get one, and like you just said, Reuben, and you know it better than me, you get one and done. Like if one mistake with them, and you're good chance you're going to lose them. That can improve with time. Like if you get them in and use the behavioral science and it's feel like it's customized, they'll send you a message to say, hey, this isn't working or it's glitchy. But again, it's almost two and done. You don't really only get one shot. So I do that find a difference. And yes, I'm sure you can attest to this. Love to get your feedback because I'm sure you've worked with both populations. But yet, like you said, the UX UI experience has to be pretty high. For the younger generations, where I do find the older ones, it's not as critical. I wouldn't suggest there's a big difference. We're only talking micro differences. They still expect a high UX UI experience. But of course, the younger generations feel that. It does have to be quick. Like obviously we can't drop in video content that's 6 minutes long. We've done research on engagement levels with that crowd.
Yeah,
So
certainly
what
the bite-sized content,
totally.
is gonna play much better.
Yep. Obviously mobile application, although I don't know what your experience is. We are seeing a shift back to web. And I think it's because, we're obviously in the student population where, during COVID, they did a lot of coursework and they didn't want to do the coursework on the phone. So they got back to
Mhm.
used to using their laptops. So that isn't as big. And actually, we're seeing people asking, like, is this also like web based? Can I get it on my laptop? Because it's easier to consume the content if they're bought in. And because we are a learning experience. I don't know if you're finding that as well.
I find again it's like high expectations. People expect it to be on both platforms and to work seamlessly between. So I might be, on the bus on my phone, want to do something there, and then when I get home, I'm going to pull up my laptop. I want to be able to switch and just smoothly have all my data updated, and then do something else, and just have that multi-platform experience without any, like you said, glitches or barriers.
Yeah. 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 And as you know, we're getting into tens of millions of dollars in those solutions. So you have to be pretty agile. I know that's the in term these days in your field, our field. You got to be pretty agile in making those decisions of where you're going to spend to make it. I would say those are a couple of what we're experiencing. I'm not finding a big difference between the two crowds from the age in like 17, 18, 19, all the way up. Um, I feel like it's because we're in the learning space. So
Mhm.
people expect a learning experience rather than, a TikTok or that kind of video. They'll tolerate a little bit longer because they know they're in a learning experience. We've really focused on the exercises that we ask people to do, keeping them quick, like you said, and meaningful. Um, yeah. So, like I said, when I saw that question and I've talked to other people about it, not seeing a huge difference. I will say um, that group is also less tolerant of. Um, we've had it happen 3 or 4 times where pronouns or the right name wasn't used and got very, very upset. Because,
Right,
for
right.
example, we do bulk entry. So the university had sent us all of their names and emails, and we inputted it and didn't have their chosen name. And so that was something that we actually put in the onboarding strategy now to make sure that we get the right, because you'll lose them with that. Where the older generations are a little more tolerant and would send a message saying, "Hey, could you use this?" Where the others are like, "I'm done. Can't believe you used that." So we've had that experience with that generation. Um, but again, for both groups, it's getting through the noise. It's because there's
Yeah,
15,000
so
different
many
solutions. It's
other options, so many
Yep,
distractions, like where you fit in their day,
yep,
and how you again kind of build that habit where they do come back on a regular
right.
basis.
And it's a fine balance for us because we're not like social media. We're trying to figure out what's the least amount of contact we can have to have the benefit, but we
Hmm.
want to keep them engaged. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's a fine balance because obviously if we're promoting get out, walk in nature, and do mindfulness and so forth, it's like we're trying to have minimal contact to grow healthy behaviors or sustain the health. So
yeah, for
yeah, like
sure.
I said, not a big difference between the two besides those smaller ones.
You mentioned a few times just the focus on research and evidence at JackHabbit. I know one of the studies you mentioned was mobile applications for health and wellness, systematic review. I'm just wondering if you have any, key insights from that research, or maybe other research that you've done over the years that were really like kind of eye-opening, like aha moments.
Yeah, I mean, we had the good fortune of having some pretty strong PhD students, some pretty strong graduate students, and then some professors involved. I will say, which we wrote the white paper, which is a condensed version of what we're talking about for JackHabbit. I think the behavioral review scale and looking at persuasive technology, design strategies were pretty aha for me, like what works, what doesn't work. Looking at reduction, tunneling, personalization, simulation, rehearsal, which strategies work. And if you get towards the end of that paper, it's what are different groups using. I can be a little overwhelming. So it's like, let's get all 28 strategies in. Where actually, if you read the paper towards the end, it's like, it can be quite overwhelming if you're trying to use all the different behavioral science state strategies and persuasive system design strategies. So yeah, just trying to figure out which ones are best. Can you get them all in there and then even try to customize those? Then I think that's where, getting more in depth with persuasive technology and using the behavioral design, because again, it's very limited. Again, even if you read that one paper that you've cited, a lot of places are still just kind of using self-direction.
Yeah.
And self-direction is not a good tool. Most people want to be directed.
Mm-hmm.
You still can provide, which we do, is everything's there. You can self-direct yourself if you want to do something or learn something. But the goal of our hub-based system was that's where you get your customized, here's what you're experiencing. Even within the journal, using analysis to provide content based off what you're saying. So one of our other papers was we took, over 20,000 journal entries and said we did a thematical analysis and looked at what are 10 things taking away from resiliency in post-secondary students and what's 10 things that we're adding. And then we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we make sure we're using that in the system as well? Mm-hmm. So I'd say those are the two things that, the more and more I learn, I want to learn more about what are these persuasive strategies that we can use for good. Behavioral change, IT systems for good. We certainly know how they're used for bad. Not that they're all bad, but we know how, and there's a lot of chatter over that. Reuben, I also thought we'd be here by now where in the US and Canada, there is starting to be a push over who is doing this. In the US, there's a big push to have similar to the FDA, like the Food and Drug, in mental health applications. So who can actually do it? What are kind of the rules and regulations around it?
Mm-hmm.
So we're not there yet.
Around, getting review and approval before being able to, bring people onto a platform.
Yeah, same as physiotherapy, massage therapy, doctors. Back in the day, it was, you couldn't call yourself a physiotherapist if you didn't have this criteria and you were certified. So, it'll probably relate around terminology and who can say their mental health or whatever the term. It's going to take some time to devise that. But obviously, evidence-informed and evidence-based is going to be there. So besides it's my own personal values, I feel like it's coming down the pike where it's, you have to be doing this. Like similar to the privacy stuff, it's going to be the similar on the other side as well.
Yeah, it's a tough balance because, of course, any kind of review process is going to, slow down, new products to get to market, and it's like another cost and another, barrier for a startup to get through. But when it comes to healthcare, maybe that's for the best because if you get these products that just go to market and aren't validated, don't really work, or worse, have like a negative impact, then people just get jaded to digital health solutions overall, and then, like you said, are less likely to try anything that does work because of those negative experiences with unproven products. So there's definitely a trade-off. Like I see both sides, but certainly a huge benefit to making sure that products in the market say or can do what they say they can do, and are scientifically validated to do that.
Yeah, that's why you're wise, and I do follow you on LinkedIn, Reuben. That's a pretty good summary. We don't want to slow down innovation, but we also don't want vaccines and drugs coming out that don't do what they say they're going to do. So, as you know, we're on this cusp. I'm using that as an example, but we're on this cusp of IT
Yeah.
potentially having the same standard. So there, I feel like there's a way to do innovation, and there is a call happening now. There is, like you just said, I can let you know there is kind of a negative vibe in the industry. We hope we're not part of the call. It is trying to break through a lot of the industry's negative experience. Unfortunately, we hit right at that time where people were going, are these actually working? Are they
Hmm.
meaningful? Are people actually engaging with them? Because we had a lot of people in the industry and competitors who would do everything not to give reporting back to the industry, back to the client.
Yeah.
They would use percentages. Well, 40% saw improvement, but it was only 4 people of 40,000 people who were actually using the tool. So, yeah, there's a bit of negativity around using IT in this space. Plus, governments and people are believing we're going to HR our way out of this, health crisis. We're not.
Right.
But people don't want to be told that IT is a solution right now because of those negative experiences. I don't mean to get too philosophical, but um, we have to embrace it. We have to make sure it works because it's probably one of the only ways to, let's say, support or save healthcare. We're not going to human resource our way out of it. That's my own personal belief, and I feel like, as you said on LinkedIn today, I usually have some backup information for it. It's not just a random, this is how Darren feels, but yeah, we have to embrace IT. We got to make sure that it works. We're not going to get 4,000 more doctors. We're not going to get 10,000 more nurses. It's just not going to happen. So yeah, having that continuum and saving those people for the really challenging stuff is kind of the philosophy of stepped care.
Yeah, certainly, and hopefully, while things are shaking out, the best solutions will survive and be adapted. Well, not all of them will. Um,
Yep.
yeah, looking forward. What's next for JackHabbit? Where do you see the platform evolving in the future?
Yeah. I feel like there might be a bit more opportunity with governments. Um, I'm a pretty honest speaker. We're upbeat. We're trying to miss the call. We're trying to say that we're evidence based. I will say a lot of insurers and the large health consulting groups, the concept was buy, build, or lease. Some have decided to buy. We were close with one very large group, and they ended up buying a company for 400 million. Um, can we still affiliate with that IT service they bought? Yeah. Um, but it appears governments, as we've seen here in Nova Scotia, across Canada, even in the US, are getting more into e-health services
Hmm.
and realizing they can't just lease 20 services and hope the citizens use them. So they need more platforms that can customize and personalize. So we're just about to sign an LOI with a foreign government potentially in Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're like obviously way behind, but that's really great because they don't have any preconceived notions. They don't have any legacy systems. It's like, let's start from here. So
Also, the potential for more of an impact
yes,
for an opportunity for improvement, right?
yeah, totally, I agree. So yeah, we've had some chats with some European governments, certainly in the Canadian government as well, and some in the US. So I feel like that may be a better fit. But we continue to talk to some other insurers who obviously provide e-health services or e-preventative services.
Hmm.
And we've also punched out the Q Life. It's really a standalone solution as well. And we feel good that it's more robust and encompasses more. So you don't have to have like a physical activity, a nutrition, a sleep, a tool for quality of life and so forth. I feel good that we put that as a standalone because it encompasses a lot of different pieces.
Yeah.
So I would say that we'll continue on that B2B market, but we also have 4 or 5 distribution groups that are considering, for example, Q Life as well. So insurers and so forth. So, okay, if we can't be your platform, we'd still like to be integrated and use our service, and then maybe we can help on another aspect. So that's where we're going with JackHabbit, talking to more governments, continue to talk to the people who provide e-health, and then have grown a bit into the B2B space. And ultimately, our goal is to help people. We want people to engage and build health habits. Again, another reason or another potential savior. For example, I have all these little tidbits. If we can increase physical activity by 10% in Canada, it's about a $2 billion healthcare savings.
Yeah.
So if we can get people to do more proactive stuff, we can really make a difference.
Well, certainly lots of reason to be optimistic and exciting potential there. Really appreciate you joining me on the podcast today, Darren. It's great to hear your experiences and your insight from so many years of working in health and wellness and in different aspects. And yeah, we're really looking forward to see where things go next.
Yeah, what a great way to finish, considering that optimism is the number one trait of resilient people. Yeah, so the more we can practice that, the better. And as an entrepreneur and a business owner as yourself, it's something that you have to put at the forefront, is being optimistic. The last thing I'll say is the number one trait of happy people is gratitude. So I try to practice that as much as I can. So yeah, grateful that we got a chance to speak. Hopefully it sparks more conversations and people reaching out to yourself or myself or both of us to continue the chat, because I love it.
Yeah. Again, great to talk with you. Really thankful for having you on the podcast. For everyone who's listening, thank you for listening. I really appreciate that you tuned in. If you enjoyed this conversation, please go to movingdigitalhealth.com to subscribe to the Mindset newsletters and listen to other episodes.